Make a wish, Harry.
So, today, this is the third podcast with...
Aidan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, Aidan. How are
Hello.
you?
I'm fantastic, Matt. I've had a really good time. You made me feel very welcome here.
I have.
You have.
I've completely relieved the stress that you have.
You have. I was really worried, and then I came in here, saw your eyes, your warm eyes, and it just relaxed me. So- okay.
Okay, so what do you want to talk about first, Aidan?
Well, it's your podcast, Matt, so it's really up to you. But, I mean, we can start on Harry Potter if you want.
Yes. Okay, so
That'd be a good start.
what is your general opinion of Harry Potter?
It's my favourite series of films that I've ever watched, really. Me and my mum have rewatched it hundreds and hundreds of times. I think it's got a lot of rewatch value, and I really enjoy it. It's more of a kids thing, though. I haven't rewatched it recently.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Are you thinking about rewatching it soon?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, Christmas would have been a good time to do it, to be fair, getting the festive spirit and stuff.
Yeah, they've got a few Christmassy like feelings to it in the is it the third one where there's lots of snow?
I think it's first one. There's like a big Christmas scene
Oh,
when Harry
yeah.
Potter gets the invisibility cloak,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I think there's one in the second one as well.
Which is your favourite Harry Potter film?
Ooh,
Out of the the original.
the original 7,
Yeah, I believe so. No, it's 8.
8, isn't it?
8.
Yeah, because it's part 1 and part 2.
Yeah.
I mean, weirdly, I think it's the third one, Prisoner of Azkaban. I think that's my favourite one, but it used to be my least favourite.
Oh.
Like I used to dread watching it when we were like watching them through again. But I think it's my favourite one now. Like what they do with like Harry Potter and Sirius Black and their relationship and stuff like that. And I think it's a different like vibe from the first two, which are quite warm and about friendship and stuff like that.
I'll fight you.
And the third one's quite different
Do
direction.
you like the fact that the direction of the series gets darker and darker because it sets the mood for the final confrontation?
I think it's something they had to do, but I've got to say, it feels weird in like moments in the Half-Blood Prince. It felt quite out of place. It felt like quite a severe move into like a depressing, dark sort of thing.
It felt like because they desaturated the images, like the film, it felt like really bleak, and it I think they should have been a bit more hopeful.
Yeah.
Because in the fifth one they were sort of like that.
Yeah.
They didn't desaturate it as much, and then they were like, right, let's just basically make it black and white, and it just.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I think Half-Blood Prince might be my least favourite one, just
Yeah.
because of how out of place it is. But I do still really like that film. Like I think as a film in its own right, I quite enjoyed it. But in the context of the series, it's a bit out of place.
I just think that a lot of the story points in like the fifth and sixth film, so Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince, like it just feels like there was lots of like missing information, especially in the films. But obviously, if you read the books, then you'd know what's sort of going on a bit more.
Yeah.
Have you read the books?
I haven't actually. I've read Chamber of Secrets because I think we were reading it in high school. Well, I chose to read it for this like accelerated reading thing. You'll remember it. But I haven't actually read all of the books. I read Cursed Child after it came out, which was sort of like a play that came out, and it was like a script book.
Yeah,
It was weird.
I've heard it was like really poorly written. Like it wasn't that good at all.
Yeah, it didn't really make much logical sense, to be honest. Like they just chucked in stuff about Draco's son Scorpio and like the time turners and stuff, which we hadn't seen since the third film. So it just felt, unless they pop up in the books a bit more. But in the film, we only ever see the time turners in the third film.
I think the time turners would have been like really cool to explore a bit more because they were like so influential in the third film. and
Yeah.
it would, and it also it was like one of the few times I've seen like time travel sort of done well,
Yeah.
like going back into the past, and it all was like explained very well.
Yeah.
So I just read that I also think that's like one of the most positive aspects of the third film is that the time traveling is done well.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's weird that something that had so much potential turned out to be so insignificant in terms of the whole series of films because, especially in the third one, originally Hermione's just using it to get to and from classes and to
Yeah.
be in different classes at the same time. Maybe I thought it was something they could have put a bit more emphasis on.
Yeah, it probably would have been a useful tool to, finish the final boss,
Yeah,
aka
yeah.
Voldemort. So, what do you think about the performance of like Voldemort by I think is I can't pronounce his name correctly ever, but it's like Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think he played the character quite well.
Cunt fucking kids.
I think especially in the last film, his acting performance was fantastic. When you see Voldemort getting weaker and weaker, I think he played off the character really well.
He just has a lot of charisma, doesn't he?
He does.
And it really
does.
pulls it off for the
Yeah.
role that he's playing in that.
Yeah, a lot of emotion and everything. It's great.
Would you say that Snape's death is like the most emotional, or did you really care? Because a lot of people are like conflicted about it. Because I mean, I wasn't as emotional as a lot of people seem to have been. So, I want to know your take.
Snape is a weird one. I think he's my favourite character in the whole thing in terms of what they did with his character arc and stuff like that. His death was probably the saddest moment. Dumbledore would have been his death in the sixth film. However, his character turns into sort of a villain towards the end a little bit. Because we learn stuff about him and his sister and his relationship with his brother and stuff like that. And he turns out to just be not a very nice person.
Harry, you put your name in a goblet of fire.
Yeah, I can understand that, but I think he was unnecessary. If you view him as an evil person, which you could, he's sort of you could probably sort of view him as like a necessary evil then.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Because Harry would have never killed Voldemort in the end if it wasn't for Dumbledore, who sent him on the hunt for the Horcruxes and stuff like that, filled him in with everything. Yeah.
I've got to say, like, I think that the fifth Harry Potter film has like one of the best action sequences, like, not ever, but like it's up there with the the final battle, and there's like it's just sound effects. There's no like dramatic music. It's just literally the
yeah.
sound effects of the like.
Yeah,
the
is that when
powers.
they're in the Ministry of Magic?
Yeah.
And they're- Yeah, Dumbledore and Voldemort.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite scenes from Harry Potter. It sticks in my head very vividly all the time.
And it's just very creative, and
Oh, yeah.
we never get to see magic used in that way again. And I think like the Harry versus Voldemort one should have been way more impactful because obviously that's the final conflict, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I think even in that fifth film, the build up to that final conflict with Voldemort and Dumbledore, you know that scene when they've got all the all the prophecies, is that what they're called? You know, when they're in that big
Horcruxes.
room. It's when they're in that big thing where they've got loads of those like globes on the shelf.
Oh, I've forgotten what you call them, but
Because I know that they were looking in there for the prophecy or something.
yeah,
Which was that with Harry and Voldemort, one can't live while the other survives. I really enjoyed that scene, to be honest, when they're running into like Bellatrix Lestrange and Lucius Malfoy and stuff, and it's just a group of students. It was quite a cool scene.
you know, some of my like it's sort of related to that because it's in the fifth film as well. But right after that, you get Sirius dying, and it's like a lot of people like a lot of my mates, like when they first watched it, they always say like, I thought he just like he wasn't dead, but he just like sort of was transported to like some sort of like wizard heaven,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which would have been a sick idea. Because then we see like sort of like that with Dumbledore in the 8th film, where
Yeah.
he's like a premonition or something.
Yeah. Sirius's death was quite emotional. That's probably up there. You know, when we were talking about Snape's death and stuff like that, it's probably up there with one of the saddest moments in the film. You know, it's the only family Harry has left and stuff like that. Yeah, and I always found his death quite weird. How he went into that sort of gate, and it's
Yeah.
almost like a gate to Wizard's Heaven. I was really wondering what that was about.
Do you think we should get like a sort of a spin-off book where we get to explore like what happened after that, if there is like a wizard's heaven? Like, do you think that would be a cool storyline to see if there is?
That could be cool because they're clearly not, you know, afraid of doing spin-offs with the whole Fantastic Beasts thing
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I think that could be a really cool direction to go, especially because I think it's an aspect of the film that a lot of people will have forgotten about. I think that could be a good direction to go in, yeah.
And also with Sirius being like such a beloved character, like it's just a taken and
Yeah.
like maybe he's in between like heaven and like a hell sort of
Yeah.
place, like a purgatory. And it's like him getting tested. It could be like a really cool short story about him seeing which direction he goes in, because obviously he's been like hunted down, but he's a good person, like he's a good father figure. So it would
Yeah.
be cool to explore.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
And then now that you've mentioned Fantastic Beasts, let's talk about that. What do you think of the first one? Let's go with the first one.
The first one was quite cool because I think because we didn't really, or I didn't really know that they were going to do a second and a third one afterwards. I thought it was just quite a cool novelty film, and I thought it was quite cool just to have a sort of a bonus thing after the Harry Potter series finishes. And I really enjoyed the first one because I thought out of all the things they could have done a spin-off with Harry Potter, the sort of mythical creatures side of it it's something that doesn't really have any limits. You can write as much as you want about that. So I really enjoyed the first one.
So, do you like the first one with the knowledge of it just being a solo film, or would you like it even if the trilogy happened? Now that you know that the trilogy has happened and they're planning 2 more films, which are currently like a bit iffy if they're actually going to make them. Do you still like the first one with that knowledge?
I still like it, but I think I would have preferred it if they put it all into one film and if they just sort of left it as that and there was no storylines, there was no cliffhangers, there was nothing to be resolved in the other 2 films. Because I feel like what they started doing was shoehorning stuff into the Fantastic Beast film that didn't really make sense. Like in the third one, Secrets of Dumbledore, I don't see how Dumbledore would ever be involved with
Newt
the main
Scamander.
character. Yeah, I don't see how Dumbledore would ever get involved with the Fantastic Beasts thing. So I was quite surprised to see that a lot of the things they had unresolved from the Harry Potter films, they just shoehorned into a Fantastic Beasts film.
I'd say my main problem with the Fantastic Beasts films in general, I think the first one's fine with Newt Scamander being the main character, but I think the problem is the fact that the main character isn't really the main character. Like, I think it should have been a story about young Dumbledore instead of maybe not scrap the first one, but make it less big. Maybe do it as like a short, like webisode or something.
Yeah.
But it's like also the recasting of Grindelwald being Colin Farrell, who was like I think the best choice for the role, and then we got Johnny Depp, and then we got what was his name? Oh, I've forgotten his name. He played the one in the third one. He's like a really good actor there.
I don't really remember in the third one. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of weird things about that trilogy that I'm not a big fan of. But I will still say I'm happy they did it. I'm happy they did it in a way that doesn't ruin the Harry Potter films for me. Unless they were to make like as everyone was saying, well, everyone in my family was saying, oh, we need another film. We need a 9th Harry Potter film. And I'm like, I don't really want to touch it now because I enjoyed it so much. So I'm happy they did the trilogy. and I'm happy it didn't really touch any of the stuff they covered in Harry Potter. But they could have done it a lot better,
Yeah.
and it didn't have to be a trilogy of films.
I think that I just think that the second one is so messy with the character that Ezra Miller plays, who has had a lot of controversy about him.
Yeah.
Or them, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it just ruins the whole franchise, doesn't it? The fact that Johnny Depp had controversy about him, and then
Yeah.
Ezra Miller. I think a lot of the behind the scenes led to the failure
Yeah.
of the trilogy or the 5-film plan.
Yeah, yeah, they were sort of hamstrung by behind the scenes stuff, and I think it is a bit sad because I think they could have done some cool stuff with it. But I'm happy it exists, and I'm sort of happy that I'm hoping it's finished now. So I'm hoping it's done, and they don't go back to it anymore.
I don't think it is.
Is it not?
Because it all depends on the third film's success, which it wasn't. It was the least grossing Harry Potter franchise film
I'm
ever.
not surprised, to be honest. Yeah.
But because the second one was so bad that nobody really wanted to check out the third one, and there was no hype. Whereas for the second one, it made money because of the hype of the first one being fairly good. It
Yeah.
was like a 6 or a 7. It was good.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it was I think they're just trying to milk it if they do a 4th and a 5th one. And I think, what is the point? Because you've got no hype about it. But the only thing about it is that, there's so many, loose threads
Yeah.
that they sort of have to do a 4th and a 5th if they're going to do it.
Yeah, they have to tie up some loose ends, but I really... this is what I don't like about sequels to films I really like.
Yeah.
Or new areas of films that I really like, because I don't want it to tarnish what I've already watched.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back to it and have a different opinion as to when I was a kid. I want to sort of have that childlike excitement when I watch a Harry Potter film, instead of thinking, oh, they did this with Dumbledore's character now, and I've got a different opinion of him that I had back then. It can be a good thing in certain cases, but an example doesn't really come to my head. So
Well, that's why Cobra Kai was so successful. In general, it didn't tarnish the Karate Kid universe. It even actually made it better. So it's
yeah, I mean, I quite enjoyed Cobra Kai. I mean, at first I wasn't a big fan
Yeah.
of the whole teen drama thing. I thought it was a bit melodramatic, and I thought a lot of the things going on just didn't make sense to me. And I thought, oh, it's just another cheesy sort of show. But I did quite enjoy it, to be honest. I think they did it in a way which, because the Karate Kid is quite a melodramatic movie in itself.
yeah.
So I think carrying that on, making it more accessible, more modern, putting it on Netflix, I personally really enjoy Cobra Kai, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that the 5th season should have ended differently, though, because of the fact that, Kreese sort of just, got released? Well, he didn't get released. He just came out. He broke out of prison.
Yeah.
Do you think he should have just died and then the series just ends and then have the Cobra Kai film, come out in 2024 like it is?
I think Kreese dying, if they're not going to do another season of the show afterwards,
Yeah.
Kreese dying makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Ending with Kreese's death makes a lot of sense. I think him just breaking out of prison is another unnecessary loose end that they have to tie up again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm excited for whatever the film they come out with. I'm excited for it.
Talking about Cobra Kai, just slightly, the main character, Miguel's actor, I don't know how to say his name, so sorry if I butcher it, but it's Zolo Madrena? Maradrena?
I think you've got that, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank God. He's playing Blue Beetle in the DCEU. Do you know much about the DCEU?
Really not clued in. Can't lie to you, Matt.
I think you're gonna like that film because he's very he's a very cheeky sort of character. He's just he flirts with his enemies and it's just jokes.
Yeah.
I think he was in Injustice 2, the game. So just check out some clips of him, and you'll get this general vibe. And I think that'll just be
Yeah.
like a fun sort of family film.
Yeah.
So
I'll definitely have to give it a watch. Yeah. 100%.
yeah. Well, another one that I'd recommend is if you haven't watched Shazam or Shazam 2 that's releasing in March, then those are probably going to be fun family films, so you might want to pop
Yeah.
that on.
Mate, give them a watch. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, it's not that dark, so. Oh, talking about dark,
Oh God, what's happening here?
have you watched Dark, the German Netflix series
I haven't.
at all?
I haven't. No, you have recommended it to me though,
Yeah.
many a time. But no, I haven't given it a watch.
But you're interested in it, would you say? Like,
It intrigues me. It definitely
Yeah.
intrigues me. Yeah.
do you what intrigues you about the trailer that I showed you for it?
It's a different vibe to a lot of the stuff I usually watch on Netflix. I will
Yeah.
say, because I usually watch some more light-hearted stuff, and obviously it's called Dark. So I mean that sort of gives you a clue. Yeah. So it intrigues me. But I think I'm going to watch Treason first.
Yeah.
You've recommended that to me, and I'll give Dark a watch after.